And welcome to the year-end edition of Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. I am your host, Lewis Bright Raven. And, well, it's been a long year, hasn't it? And I haven't even been on the air that long. I started back in August of this year, so we've only had 17 episodes of regular podcasting. We do it once a week here on Thursday, usually on Thursdays, but we've sporadically shown them as Catch as Catch Can on different nights as well. And 2019 has been a very interesting year to date, but we're not going to talk about a lot of the stuff that we've already covered over the past several episodes. We're going to go into something a little bit different this year. And that is straight into reviews. And then we'll talk a little bit about the best comics of the year, best creators, and so on, from my opinion, my viewpoint. So let's, there's not very many questions this year, so we're not going to get into not going to do questions this particular end of the year episode. So we'll get straight to reviews. And we're going to start with movies and TV shows this time around. Just saw it yesterday, Star Wars, Rise of Skywalker. Other writers are Chris Terrio and J.J. Abrams for the screenplay. Terrio, Abrams, Derek Connolly, and Colin Trevorrow for the story. The director was J.J. Abrams, starring Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Adam Driver, and a bevy of the original cast and minor appearances. The genre was science fantasy, and what it's about. Well, it's the final episode of the Skywalker saga, where Rey discovers her true lineage and must face off against the returning Emperor Palpatine in the final conflict to end the war between the Jedi and the Sith. I gave it 3 stars out of 5. It hits everything that it's supposed to hit in terms of answering questions for the most part and bringing a point of resolution to the overall Skywalker saga, as it were. There's a lot of questions that are there that aren't touched upon. There's new characters introduced that really we don't get to see enough of them. I don't know if we'll see them in the future in new movies with the characters. I'm kind of hoping we'll see more of Rey and Finn and Poe post-Skywalker saga, but we'll see. But there are characters like Zoe Bliss, and there's characters like, I can't even think of the character's name, but the female who rides the horse creatures in the film, that it would be interesting to see some of their stories in the future. So I'm kind of hoping to see more of that. I don't want to spoil anything for those who haven't seen the films. They did a good job with what they did with Princess Leia. They did a good job with what they did bringing back Mark Hamill for Ghost Force Luke. A few other things here and there. They did a decent job resolving Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, and his story arc. I think the biggest questions were more of a why this specific thing here or there. And again, I'm not going to get into specific instances of that because I don't want to spoil anything for anyone who hasn't already seen the movie. But it was okay. You know, I wouldn't say it was the best Star Wars movie. I don't think it was worse than, you know, it was a good, you know, middle of the road final resolution of that arc, basically. And that's why I gave it middle of the road grade of 3 out of 5 stars. Now, last week, I mentioned I got some of the DC television on DVD for Christmas, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I'm going to start with Titans Season 1 DVD. The writers and directors were just too many to list. It was produced and developed by Kiva Goldsman, Greg Berlanti, and Jeff Johns, but there's way too many other writers and directors that are involved in the season besides them. It's starring Tegan Croft as Raven, Brenton Thwaites, I guess is how he pronounces his last name, as Dick Grayson Robin, Anna Diop as Starfire, Ryan Potter as Beast Boy, Minka Kelly as Dove, and Alan Rickson as Hawk. The genre is superhero drama. What it's about is Dick Grayson, the original Robin's sidekick to Batman, has retired from adventuring and become a detective in the Detroit police force. He comes across Rachel, also known as Raven, a young girl with unnatural abilities who is being hunted by a cult. He tries to protect her, and in the process meets with Corey Anders, Starfire, and Gar Logan, Beast Boy, Changeling, and the force, and along with the help of Grayson's former superhero friends, Donna Troy and Hawk and Dove, they try to protect Rachel from those who would use her. I recommend this for TV-14 viewing. It's a little bit more adult than the standard DC stuff that we see on the CW or when they were running Supergirl on CBS. I had a little bit higher expectations for it than what I got, I guess. I don't know for sure. Maybe it's just I'm just that big of a Titans fan. It was good, but there were things that left me a little bit cold. Anna Diop's a really good actress, and I have no problem with a black girl playing the character of Starfire, but the wardrobe just really was off-putting. Didn't really fit the character from me, and kind of it stood out. It really stood out to me comparative to all the other characters that were really in sync with what their characters are known to look like. It just, Starfire just doesn't run around in a mink coat and look like a streetwalker. I'm sorry. So little things like that just kind of bugged me about that particular thing there. But the story was well done. You can tell that Jeff Johns and Berlanti and the others are doing their best to capture the essence of the early 80s Titans that Marv Wolfman and George Perez were doing. Overall, it's well performed. I don't think there's any weak acting performances in the show. I think just because I was such a fan of the Titans comic series, it just slightly left me a little bit off. Good evening to John Norris. Nice to see you. And let's see, what do we got going on here? Oh, this is what we have. Yeah. Okay. I definitely would recommend it for fans of Teen Titans. I gave it 3.5 stars. It probably could go 4, but I went 3.5 probably because I'm being a little bit harder on this particular series as I really was a fan of the 80s Titans series. It's not quite there. I haven't seen any of season 2. I won't get to see it until it's on DVD. I've already heard spoilers. My favorite character is going to get killed off, of course. It's always the way it is. So that'll be that. But overall, not a bad series at all. The other DC universe I got to watch. I haven't watched all of it yet, but it's Doom Patrol Season 1 DVD. Again, the writers and directors were too many to list. It's developed by Jeremy Carver and or Jeffrey. It's either Jeffrey or Jeremy Carver. And again, Akiva Goldsman and Berlanti and Jeff Johns also have their hand in it a little bit. It stars Diane Guerrero, April Bowlby, Matt Bomer, Brendan Fraser, Jovian Wade, Timothy Dalton, Alan Tudyk, and others. I call it superhero horror drama because there's a more of a darker element to this than others. And what it's about is the adventures of a group of misfits with superpowers who have sequestered themselves away from the world, who now have to save their mentor and the world from an other dimensional villain created by Nazi technology, all while trying to come to grips with who they are as individuals and as their dysfunctional family. I give it 4.5 stars. And the reason I do that is probably unlike Titans. I was never a huge fan of the Doom Patrol. And I can tell what they're doing. They're doing the Grant Morrison 80s, early 90s type, which is okay. That's fine. But if you watch the show and you see the opening credit sequence, Grant Morrison's not credited. It's all the original 60s guys, Arnold Drake and the others that created the originals. And I'm a little bit perplexed as to that because this is not the original Doom Patrol. This is the Doom Patrol of the Grant Morrison era, very clearly. And that plays it into that Vertigo camp. So there's a lot of stuff in it that really goes a little bit sideways in terms of where normal superhero comics, TV shows like Arrow and Supergirl and even Titans are pretty straightforward action adventure stuff. This stuff is really got a lot more symbolism and character moments in it that are more, I won't say nuanced, I would just say more darker and more poignant in terms of where they want to show these characters and their multifaceted personality and perspectives, and not just like Crazy Jane who has 64 different personalities, but all the characters have different quirks in them that very definitively characterize how they behave throughout the season, and I think that's pretty interesting. That's not really there in some of the other shows. A lot of the other shows, they even act in direct opposition of what their setup, their quirks, and their characters are. So that's one thing I think is very strong about this series is the characterization, more so than some of the other DC universe, or not DC universe, but CW, anything DC TV wise. I also think that Diane Guerrero, who plays Crazy Jane, who's the top character, just really steals the show from everyone else. Not that the other actors aren't doing an excellent job. They all are. They all have great story arcs for each individual character. And really the only thing I give a half off of for this so far is the fact that Cyborg's in it. And I think Cyborg belongs over in Titans, to be honest. That's probably just me in terms of me being a Titans fan. And it's not like the character doesn't fit what they're doing. It's just, in a way, Cyborg and Robot Man are kind of, sort of, very similar in the type of character they are, and it's kind of redundant in a way. And I think he would have been more dynamic and more interesting in Titans than he has been in Doom Patrol. But Jovian Wade's doing a good job with what he's been given, and I do like the character. And I hope that story continues to be hold true. I think I've got about maybe 2/3 of the first season watched so far, and I've really enjoyed it. That is pretty much all the reviews for this week, though, because we want to get straight into best of the year stuff. So let's get to that. The best comics of 2019, in my opinion. The best ongoing series this year was Black Science by Rick Remender, Matteo Scalera, Moreno Vinicio from Image Comics. That series has concluded after 43 issues, and it has been collected into 9 volumes. I have not done a full Black Science review. That's coming probably on Thursday this week or next week. I'm not sure exactly when, but it'll be this Thursday or next week Thursday. We're going to do a full retrospective on the series. The best limited series was Strayed by Carlos Gaffoni, Juan Doe, and Matt Kreutzer from Dark Horse Comics. I did review Strayed earlier this year. It's about a cat in the future who has psychic abilities and can travel to different planets and check out whether or not there's life forms on planets that are worth communicating with, or in the case of the people that are trying to use the cat, whether or not they're worth killing off and using the planet for resources. So we will go back and we'll review that series again also later this week or next week. But that is now available in trade paperback through Dark Horse as well. The best one shot was The Quiet Kind from Chuck Brown, Jeremy Treese, Kelly Williams, and Michael Cho, published by Dark Horse Comics. I believe I know I reviewed this about two or three episodes ago. It's a good one shot about the fox and the serpent anime, not anime, but the animus of those entities. And the fox gives a certain boy who has potential to create or destroy the universe the power to do so. And what's going to happen with that character is what that one shot's about. And it's one of the better series. It was 56 pages, I believe, for $5.99. And Chuck's also been doing some other stuff, and he's going to be expanding. I think there's a new series from Dark Horse coming out. I don't know if it's connected to this or a new one. I'll have to talk to him about it. The best original graphic novel was Snow Glass Apples by Neil Gaiman and Colleen Dorn, also from Dark Horse Comics. Again, I reviewed that a couple weeks back. It came out in originally August, but I think I got my copy in October or early November. It's a reinterpretation of the Snow White fable, basically, where Snow White's evil side, and we get to see the witch being the good person, so to speak. So let's see what else. Our best print comic not distributed through Diamond is Trekker by Ron Randall at ronrandallart.com. I have not reviewed Trekker, at least not recently. It's science fiction, series bounty hunter, female character. If you like The Mandalorian, you'll like Trekker. It's that type of a character. Her name is Mercy St. Clair. And just a second. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I've got the omnibus edition from Dark Horse, because this book used to come out through Dark Horse, and they even had the Image publish it briefly, but Ron's been publishing it himself for the last couple of years. Again, it's Mercy St. Clair, Bounty Hunter, and it's kind of like Western science fiction. It really fits the same kind of milieu that the Mandalorian TV series fits. Now, this particular combination omnibus is a combination of color and black and white, but I'm going to show a little bit of it here. I don't have the more recent stuff right available to me, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about Shrekker in just a little bit, so we'll get to that. We'll get back to that in a moment. The last best print comic I purchased through social media funding was Gladstone's School for World Conquerors, Volume 3, Scorpio Kane by Mark Andrew Smith, Armand Villavert, Jesse Lamb, and Pat Brousseau from Maneki Neko Books. We reviewed that. I've interviewed with Mark Andrew Smith a couple of weeks ago, and next week's show on 9th, I'm going to have Armand Villavert as our guest. So we're going to see more about that, and we'll talk about more about that series and the future of the Gladstones universe next week. But those are my top pieces this year, as far as the books go. Let's see here. My best creators of the year. The best writer debut is Nora K. Jemisin for Far Sector of DC Comics. Could not think of anyone who debuted this year in 2019 for best artist debut. I may just be escaping me. I'm not really sure about that. I just couldn't think of anyone. The best writer artist this year was Nick Cagnetti for Pink Lemonade from It's Alive Publishing. The best writer was Jeff Lemire, whose works include Black Hammer, The Question, and Family Tree. Best artist went to Matteo Scalera for Black Science and Space Bandits. Best colorist went to Laura Martin for Ragnarok and Star Wars. Best letterer went to Todd Klein for Black Hammer and Books of Magic. Best cover artist went to Christian Ward for Invisible Kingdom and Tommy Gun Wizards. The best writer-artist team went to Carl Kessel and Arkiesel, and Tom Grummett for Section 0. My cat's being fussy with me tonight. I'm trying to get in trouble. Best publisher is Dark Horse Comics for 2019. The reason why is I graded my best publishers by the highest number of titles I purchased from each company throughout the year. Dark Horse had 20 different titles that I purchased. The runner-up was Image Comics with 10. Now, I bought a lot of stuff from Dark Horse this year, including Invisible Kingdom by G. Willow Wilson and Christian Ward, Girl in the Bay. I'm trying to think of his name. It's escaping me. LaGuardia by Nydia Corafor, which I did review. Everything, which was about the kind of like the cross between Twin Peaks and Walmart. I did a review on those a while back. Ruby Falls by Ann Nesenti, and I did a review on that. She Could Fly, The Lost Poet. I have not reviewed She Could Fly. I will do that early next year. Black Hammer, Age of Doom. I was reading all the Black Hammer, but I pulled the Black Hammer books because of just too many titles that Jeff was doing. Jeff Lemire is the writer. and I was getting a little bit overwhelmed with it. BPRD, The Devil You Know in 1956, and Crimson Lotus, all part of the Mike Mignola verse. I've stopped buying the Mignola verse this year after those three were finished, those three arcs. Again, just too many Mignola verse books to follow anymore, and after reading their characters for 25 years, I'm burned out on them. It's time for me to move on. Still good books, but it eventually, I think, as with everything, we get tired of things, we move on. I also got Beasts of Burden, The Presence of Others, which was a two-issue series, a series called Light Step, No One Left to Fight. Light Step I did do a review on. No One Left to Fight, I think I might have done a review, but I'm not really sure. The aforementioned Quiet, Kind, and Strayed that were some of the best of the year. Triage, which has got one more issue to go. Tommy Gun Wizards. Grendel Devil's Odyssey, which is Matt Wagner. And Blackwood and Snow Glass Apples. That's all the stuff I got from Dark Horse this year. So quite a bit of stuff. And like I said, the next runner-up was Image with about half as many titles, 10. There were quite a few other companies out there that I got 4 to 6 titles throughout the year. IDW, Boom, Aftershock got 3 or 4 titles, 6 titles each. Source Point Press got 3 different books, I believe. I think they got Monstrous, Samurai Grandpa, and Savants. So that's 3 from them. But a lot of them, that's what it was. It was just like, a series here, a series there type thing. And it wasn't, and most of them were limited series, whereas a lot of the other stuff I was getting, while they were limited series, it just seemed like I was getting a lot more from Dark Horse. Mm-hmm. So that pretty much concludes my best of the year stuff. What do we have to look forward to in 2020? Well, this is what I think we've got. Sean Wang's Runners is returning to publication online and in print with the new story arc, Defects of Character. For those of you who don't know what Sean Wang's Runners is, it's a science fiction series that he began, probably around, let me look real quick. I'm not exactly sure when he started it, but 2006, I think. No, a little bit earlier than that. It had to be earlier. Let's see. I guess it was the same year that Joss Whedon's Firefly came out, because I specifically remember that they did similar story arcs, and Sean's comic actually came out before Firefly. So, yeah, that's about the same. It's about that time. I guess that's about 03 or 04, I guess. Then that was when the Runners originally came out in comic form. But you go to, let's see. You can go to runnersuniverse.com and learn more about that series and get the first 2 trades, as well as the page for there we go. Here is the actual page to the new cover for the new Image. This is volume 3, part 1 cover. Again, you can get volume 1, Bad Goods, and volume 2, which I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. And you can also go to Comixology. It's a big snow job, actually, is what the second one's called here. You can go to Comixology and buy them. You can go to Webtoons and get them. Or you can buy the actual print from their store. And I'm looking forward to seeing the third chapter, because it's basically one of the best science fiction comic books on the market today. It's been a long time that since the second story arc had been concluded. He'd been on hiatus for quite a while. So I'm looking forward to seeing that next year. Let's see. My computer's being fussy today. Again, Trekker, The Complete Journey, Volume 1. Later in January, on the 21st, the creator, Ron Randall, will be launching the first ever deluxe hardcover Trekker collection. That is all of the lead characters currently out of print stories. Everything from her first appearance in '86 up to the final book that Dark Horse put out, which was Trekker Rites of Passage, back in 2013, before Randall went on Kickstarter to continue the story in all new volumes. All over 470 pages, all of it in full color for the first time ever. So basically everything that you see in this book, plus another 200 pages. And as you can see, a lot of this stuff in this volume is in black and white, because it was originally printed through Dark Horse in black and white. It'll all be in color in the new edition. So I'm looking forward to seeing that and picking that up as well. Let's see. You can get, if you want to see where to get Ron's stuff for Trekker, let me see if I can find it real quick for you guys. My computer's being fussy too much. Here we go. You can get various digital things at trekkercomic.com. That would be, hold on a second. trekkercomic.com. And let's see if I can get this silly thing to do what it's supposed to. Yeah, it's being fussy. Sorry about that, folks. This is Ron's page. This is one of the pages from the story Battlefields. You can get the Battlefields graphic novel for $14.99. 120-page book. You can get the Dark Star Zephyr, another $14.99, 120-page graphic novel. This is on his Etsy store page. Mm-hmm. These are the stories that were released on Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. And we will go ahead and quickly see if there's yeah, unfortunately there's not a lot of images other than the cover on that page to show you the interior art, but you can get all three, Chapel Town, The Dark Star Zephyr, and Battlefields for $40 with free shipping. Save $5 with doing that. But if you like The Mandalorian, this is basically the same kind of stuff. I think you'll enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Let's see what else we got going on next year to look forward to. Mark Andrew Smith and Andrew Villavert Jr. will be releasing more one-shots connected to the Gladstones universe. And again, we will speak with them next week about them. I was speaking mostly with, I don't know why I said Andrew. It's Armand. It's Armand Villavert, folks. I don't know why. I always do that with them. I apologize because Mark Andrew and then Andrew and Armand, but I do that every so often when I'm typing them out. I apologize, Armand. But it's Armand who will be here on January 9th to talk about some of the new one-shots with the Gladstones universe. And maybe Mark will show up too. I don't know. We'll see. Colleen Doran's new image project, Clockwork, has been solicited and will be released in January or February of this year. Ann Nocenti and David Aha's The Seeds, which originally came out through Dark Horse a while back in singles, but ran into some difficulties and was on a long hiatus. Will be released in its entirety from Burger Books Dark Horse Comics later in 2020 as a collected edition. And personally, this channel will beginning to feature more live draw episodes and create round table episodes in 2020. And new original projects and products will be solicited by me in 2020 as well. So that's what I have to look forward to. I don't know, what do you folks have to look forward to? I don't know who all's watching. We got 2 viewers. I know John's probably one of them. If either you want to comment. But where is 2020 headed? Well, we are a nation that's splintering on a multitude of fronts. The political landscape of the United States in the last few years, I think we all know, has been something of a mess. And I think that's going to lend to an even further fractured populace as the 2020 elections move forward. The question is whether or not people can stop pointing fingers at one another, playing the blame game, and finally come to terms as to the real reasons why the 2016 election came to the result it did, instead of the rhetoric that we've been subjected to for the better part of the past 4 years. In connection to the comics industry, it's also looking like an increasingly broken and fractured market, as we will see the rise of more online marketing platforms for the medium, be it as digital comic format, social media funding platforms like Indiegogo and Kickstarter. And there will be probably 1 or 2 more platforms that will be announced sometime this year that are going to be strictly comics related. If they get everything lined up so that you can do that instead of going through Kickstarter or going through Indiegogo and having to deal with whatever the issues are that creators are facing dealing with those groups. Online store platforms like Etsy, like what I just showed you with Ron Randall, some of the other people out there, they're going to be doing that more and more as the creators sell direct to audience to counter the constricting nature of the diamond direct sales market. And because of that, it's my opinion that if the creator community, or retailer community rather, wants to continue to survive, then there has to be changes in the attitude where diamond can no longer be the priority. I've said this in the past. I'm going to conclude with that again here at the end of 2019. Diamond carries less than 8% of all comics produced in the United States, which most of the comics retail market orders less than 40% of the content that's in Diamond's catalog to any significant level of amount. So basically, this means that the 2,100 to 2,300 comics specialty stores in America that Diamond have Diamond accounts, order the equivalent of maybe 1 to 3% of the content that their art form actually has to offer. Now, I want people to stop and think about that, especially the retailers. If you're only carrying 1 to 3% of what the entirety of the medium offers, and that's the only thing you're marketing to your customers, is it SJWs that are causing your readers to leave? No. Is it bad comics? Whatever a bad comic is, that's driving your customers out and leaving you with less and less sales? I don't think so. I think it's that you can't sustain a current readership or build new audiences when we have a media platform crossover that is going elsewhere now. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I think we are going to see more and more retailers cutting their diamond ties in 2020, because there's been a trend of that for the last few years now. And we're starting to see retailers openly talking about it online, such as Dennis Barger of Wonderland Quick Stop Comics in Michigan, who just announced recently that he was quitting his new comic book orders from Diamond. As much as the fan base wants to disparage Dennis and say, well, it's just him, it's not just him. I've watched 22 other retailers do exactly what he's done or is doing, if not completely shut down all new book sales over the last 18 months, citing many of the same issues Dennis has over the years. I keep seeing even the most successful retailers in the industry, people like Phil Boyle, Chuck Rosansky, and Brian Hibbs, to name a scant few, talking about these very same issues that Dennis is talking about with Diamond on their social media platform. So this is not Dennis or anybody else just complaining to complain, trying to draw attention to themselves. No matter how badly the idiot fandom at Bleeding Tool or other comics news sites, and I use that term loosely, care to try to respond to it, or their audience bases to those websites want to try to respond to it. What Barger's doing is continuing an ongoing trend in comics retailing that nobody's paying attention to. And that is, there's a lot of retailers who have stopped carrying new comics from Diamond entirely and have instead become back issue specialists. This means there are retailers who will buy up collections from people who are getting out of the hobby. They'll buy up failed comic shops. They'll flip the worthless stuff at next to nothing online or elsewhere and sell their meaningful books either on eBay or their online stores. And they often barely keep a storefront presence, if any. And this is the new way. I'm not going to say I have spoken, but other people have spoken and said as much. Again, another Mandalorian reference for all you fanboys out there. And that trend is going to continue to grow in 2020. And I think it's going to be out there talked about in certain circles, but not necessarily in comics news media, because the comics news media doesn't want the audience base that's following those sites, whether it's CBR, Bleeding Cool, Newsarama. They're not going to cover that stuff because they don't want that represented to the audience base, because they think it's a negative thing. It's not negative. It just happens to be what's happening. And I think we're going to see another 200 to 250 retailers in the country shift to this type of business structure in 2020. Now, we also have another trend that's coming, and that's in the non-diamond new independent comics market, as I refer to it. And we've got a problem, and that is we're becoming too demonstratively negative towards each other. And as a whole, we need to start to work towards a more positive, inclusive attitude instead of this segregational, cliquish, immature behavior that's prevailed in recent times, as evidenced by the Comicsgate hate and the people that are doing Comicsgate that are sitting there trashing mainstream comics or mainstream creators. That stuff's got to stop. Okay. You cannot build a healthy, sustainable market by tearing down other people. You got to build your own, and we got to help each other do that. Okay. Retailers need to start looking for the common ground with these people, these new indies, and we need to build a new distribution channel to bring that content to their stores if they really want this stuff in their stores. And retailers are going to have to be more proactive marketers of this content over and above the diamond content if they really want to get this material in their stores. Many of the books that are being sold through online platforms, including Trekker, including Gladstones, including Perhapanauts, just title after title after title. I could probably name 15 or 20 more, but you get the point. These are all books that supposedly failed through the diamond market. Well, they didn't fail. They simply weren't properly marketed or ordered by the comics retail community. If they had been, they would have probably been more successful, and we wouldn't be playing games online, putting on our Indiegogo boots and getting on the Kickstarter stage to do our little performances to try and get audience base. But it's not just retailers, fans. We got to stop with the same mentality of hatred directed at everything. You can't do another year of Marvel and DC suck because of SJW creators. Marvel and DC have sucked for decades. It has nothing to do with SJW creators. SJW creators have been here for 2 or 3 decades as it is. You can't sit there and tell me how Vertigo was ruined by SJWs when Vertigo has always been SJW. Go back and look at the history of Vertigo and look at all the creators who were published and how many of them were women, how many of them were gay, how many of them were bi, how many of them were transsexuals. Look it up. It's always been there. And so, it wasn't them who destroyed the brand. It was the last people in charge who didn't want that stuff who destroyed the brand, not the other. Creators need to stop trashing creators out of jealousy because they're the past or they've never had their turn at mainstream comics. Again, it's the whole SJWs ruining comics bullshit. Half the people who are spewing this nonsense are the very creators who drove me away from Marvel and DC 2 decades ago. You can't get mad at Black women writers, like science fiction authors, like Nnedi Okorafor, Nalo Hopkinson, and Nora K. Jemisin, because they're coming into the comics market and start asking smart-ass questions like, what qualifies them to do comics? Because there's a whole readership, myself included, who don't give a crap what their so-called qualifications may or may not be. I and several thousands of other fans have been demanding their inclusion in this market for over a decade. And some of us are happy that they're getting something. Some of us are going, well, yeah, at least they're here, but they're not on the books I want them on. That would be me. I'd like to see some of these writers actually get on the major titles, instead of second and third tier characters that virtually nobody cares about. But you got to start somewhere. So at least they're getting a start. That's better than nothing. But I don't need people who are saying, well, I've been writing comics for 30 years and I'm not getting any jobs. And I guess if I'd gone to Hollywood, I'd be writing comics because everybody goes over to Hollywood writers. Well, I'm sorry. There's tons of Hollywood writers who don't have work in comics, who would like to have not had their turn and would like a turn. So no, that's not the issue either. It's about who's friends with whom and whose butt you're kissing. But ultimately, we need to see everyone stopping the whining about what's wrong with this industry and start talking about what we actually like. Stop attacking people for what they enjoy just because you don't share the same tastes and interests. Criticize, if you're going to criticize people, criticize them for bitching about the content that they buy, even though they complain about having to buy it because they don't like it. Because buying the same crap that you don't like and then bitching about it is not going to change your status. It's not going to change anything. You want to fix things, you have to change things. You can't keep doing the same thing and expect a different outcome. People need to stop buying books for the express purpose of mocking or trashing them on social media. That's not what podcasting is for. That's not what our industry is for. It's bullshit behavior that people should get their fingers smashed with a ball-peen hammer for, as far as I'm concerned. And you people know who I'm talking about. If you've watched the comic podcasters out there, you know who I'm referring to. I'm not going to point fingers and name names because they don't deserve to be named. Lastly, when you guys start going to comic shops, or you continue to go to comic shops, because some of you have lapsed from reading and you may decide to go again. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But those of you who are going to comic shops on a regular basis, when you go, try to find at least one new product that you've never bought before and try it. Now, you're not going to always find something to your liking or interest every time you go. All I'm asking is that you make an effort to find something. There's too many fans today who pre-order all their pulls, cash out and leave the shop because it seems like they're ashamed to be in the store. They often buy pull books that they aren't even entirely happy with and then turn around and complain about it on their social media. So when you're going to go to the comic shop, look for something new. Again, you're not necessarily going to find something new, but if you really look, you should be able to find something on a semi-regular basis. I find something every week, but that's because I've been doing it for a long time. Not everybody's as open-minded as me, and nobody's doing it for as long as I've been doing that. So there's that. The other thing is, when you go to comic shops, talk to one another, people. Help each other find new comics. Share the medium. That's pretty much my thoughts on 2019 for the year. If you want to check out more stuff from me online, best place to go is on Facebook, Lewis.BrightRaven, at deviantart.com/BrightRaven. Here at YouTube, you go Quoth the Raven, Lewis Bright Raven. If you want to email me, The best one to reach me at for this podcast is the top one from Gmail, quothetheravenlbr72@gmail.com. Otherwise, you can try and reach me through Yahoo Mail at lewisbartraven@yahoo.com. The new season 2, I'm probably going to start it on January 9th, but we'll see if we can start it next week or not, or next Thursday or not on the 2nd. But I'm thinking it's going to be starting January 9th, Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mm-hmm. In closing, thank you for watching Quote the Raven for this year. Mm-hmm. I appreciate the support, and I hope that next year in 2020, we're going to have new opening, new music, new formats, new stuff that we're going to be reviewing, because we're going to be reviewing not just comics and film and television, we're going to be reviewing books as well. And we're going to hopefully, like I said, we're looking to bring in the Creators Roundtable more often with multiple creators as guests to talk about different subjects. And we're going to do a lot more coverage of where you can buy comics online, and where you can buy new materials that you can't get through Diamond in 2020. So that's what we got coming your way next, starting in January 9th. This is Lewis Brightraven. Thank you for watching. Until next year, nevermore.